The Vikings, the warriors of the world. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe suffered several blows. The most powerful were from the Scandinavian peoples, who in the 8th century AD began a series of territorial expansions. These warlike sailors are known as Vikings or Norsemen. The main cause of the expansion was probably overpopulation, and it is possible that at first the Vikings landed in new regions to trade. But they soon realized that they could conquer and rule them. The urge to leave Scandinavia led the Vikings to seek and use lands. The Vikings headed in three main directions. Those who crossed the Atlantic were mostly Norwegians and founded the cities of Dublin 840, Wexford and Limerick on the Irish coast. Those who crossed the North Sea and attacked the east coast of Great Britain, invading northern and western Europe, were Danes, and the Swedish Vikings, known as the Varigs, crossed the great rivers of present-day Russia, reaching Constantinople, even Baghdad. Fearsome fighters, famous for their fits of warlike fury, the Vikings were pagans. They did not respect churches and monasteries, their riches being their main targets. The legendary Vikings, before being converted to Christianity, were pagans. They worshipped many gods, and when Christians arrived on the Scandinavian peninsula and began to change these inhabitants' perception of God, the Vikings accepted the appearance of yet another god in their faith quite quickly and easily. They were not very deep in faith, but they excelled in other more concrete areas. For example, in shipbuilding. On board their warships, with elongated and extremely spacious shapes, the Vikings, armed with shields, spears, and, for the wealthiest, swords, gradually conquered entire islands. They were to be feared. They themselves knew no fear. They killed easily. Their most frequent victims were the monks in isolated, defenseless monasteries, whom they killed and robbed. They left some alive, but took them as slaves and sold them to other lands for hard labor in the fields. The few historical testimonies that remain to us today from the Vikings show that these communities that appeared seemingly out of nowhere in the 8th century brought instability and ruthless crimes to the world. However, we should not ignore the fact that the Vikings had the chance to have lived in a period marked by profound religious changes, political expansions, and economic development. Everywhere they went, the Vikings left their mark. Even if they reached the coasts of present-day Great Britain, even if the wind carried them as far as North America, the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland, they left behind settlements. In some places they were so developed that they deserved the name of a city. Markets, trading posts, where goods coming from Eastern Europe were connected to goods sent to the West and vice versa. They knew the secrets of trade. They were skilled craftsmen. They worked with wood, metal, leather, and bones. They produced jewelry, textiles, shoes, and combs. There is even a legend according to which at the end of the 9th century, the beginning of the 10th century, the foundations of England were laid by a handful of Viking soldiers who gave up their swords in favor of the plow. But we have many legends left from the Vikings. Even the famous Anglo-Saxon chronicles, writings from the 13th century that condemn in extremely harsh terms the conquests and bloody acts of the Vikings, include a series of more or less true stories.